In the video, we're going to take a look at the November 2nd releasing Cloud Eclipse. It weighs 9.7 ounces, 275 grams US 9, and has a Big Max 37 millimeter heel, 31 millimeter forefoot, and of course a beautiful On upper. It introduces, or for the second shoe, On's Cloudtech Phase angled elements that really move you forward. It's a wonderful big shoe ride. We'll also take it on an A/B run and compare it to the On Cloudmonster, also a max cushion shoe from On, but not nearly the same ride and comfort. Hi everyone, Sam from RoadTrailRun. Today we're going to take a close look at the On Cloud Eclipse. It's a brand new shoe launching November 2nd, and it represents a really fine implementation of On's Cloudtech elements, but in a new approach, which we first saw in the very flexible, kind of thin feeling Cloud Surfer this year. But here we have a rigid rocker profile shoe with the Cloudtech Phase elements. You can see they're angled in the direction of travel, really effective during my first run. And we have a somewhat softer herein foam. So this is a rigid rocker profile shoe. And I guess I got to tell you, I was a bit worried that it might not flow well, but it does. It really flows magnificently. Further, what On has done is they've changed, as you can see, the outsole. You remember, and here's probably the last implementation of it in the Cloudmonster, the pods, the podular kind of outsole. Here we have a fuller contact with the ground. And you'll notice the famous speed board. It's now a midfoot shank that extends, I think, all the way to the rear, whereas before it was full length in most of the Ons, and it led to kind of a firm, harsh ride. I never much enjoyed On rides, but I always loved their style. Maybe Roger Federer, now involved, said, hey, we got to have some more friendly running shoes. In the Cloud Surfer, we had no speed board. We had the Cloudtech Phase pods, and I found the Cloud Surfer a lot of fun, but not really a very good distance shoe, and I'll show you why here. As you can see on forefoot compression, they go all the way down. So yes, while it was bouncy, it got thin and tiring. Whereas here with our rigid rocker and more stack height, we have 37 millimeters at the heel, 31 millimeters at the forefoot. According to On, I actually measure, I think, a bit more at about 40 millimeters, but we have a much bigger stack height, actually 2 millimeters more than the Monster, which had a flexible profile and that firmer herein foam. Well, I'm going to give you impressions from the run, and I'm going to compare them A/B to our Monster, but this is clearly a more effective max cushion shoe. I do not miss the flexibility at all that the Monster had. It was a fine shoe because our elements really roll us forward through the stride while staying very stable with our midfoot shank. As you can see, the speed board moves from the center of the shoe. You can see it was way up there and was full length. Now it extends from here to the rear. I do have a bit of, I guess, a small negative in that I don't think it definitely is in the back here. I don't think it should be on the lateral side, because what On can do is tune the shapes of each of the elements. And here on the lateral side, they have a wider, it's about 10 millimeters longer than on the medial side, and I'll show you that. You can see the medial side is shorter. So they could have achieved the same kind of heel stability, I think, with a shorter, less pronounced rear Cloudtech element. And because it's a bit rigid here, but that's a minor con. You can also see that it's more filled in. We're not going to have the rock issues, and there's much more contact from the outsole to the ground. In terms of the upper, and I'll get into the A/B comparison with the Cloudmonster. You'll see that video a little later, that segment. we definitely have a broader toe box with softer, more pliable foam, pliable mesh than in the Cloudmonster. In fact, it's very similar in upper design to the Surfer, whose mesh is kind of quite a bit thicker, not quite as pliable, but the same kind of lacing system. So let's get into that. But before we leave the front of the shoe, you can see how pliable, soft it is. But we do have a nice vertical toe bumper. They fit me perfectly to true to size. I have a narrower to medium foot, and they're quite roomy but very well held. I think very, very low volume feet may struggle a bit, but wider feet I think will be happy, because what we have here is to hold us here in this area. We have these reflective laminates tied into the lacing system, so that holds you here. And then we have a knit tongue, but it isn't super stretchy, and you can see it has pads on the sides here, and those pads help cushion you from this quite substantial strip here, which holds the rest of the laces. We have an additional lace, if you will, a lace eyelet, because as you can see here, we came down to here, whereas here we wrap around the foot. The collar hold is really good. It's not quite as secure as the more substantial collar hold here. As you can see, it's a bit more pliable, although we do have a very stout clip around the rear, kind of textured, beautifully looking. And you can see how it's quite rigid at the bottom, but quite pliable at the top. This might be a bit overdone too, but I'm not complaining. So in terms of overall pros and cons, and I'll get to from the run impressions, a very fun, lively ride. You will be surprised that this rigid shoe moves along so well. In terms of comparable kinds of shoes in the max category, we've got the Puma Magnify Nitro 2, which is a flexible profile, about the same cushion but a higher drop. This is 8mm drop versus 10 there. We have the Vomero from Nike, dual layers of different foam, ZoomX and Cushalon. Again, a flexible kind of profile shoe. And then you got to get into some of the plated shoes. And here there's no plate at the front, although we do have the midfoot shank. Kind of reminds me of the Adidas Torsion in some ways, and just as effective because it stabilizes. Then we get into things like the More V4 from New Balance, very mushy, soft. I found kind of hard to turn over. Endorphin Shift, a really fine one. But again, the magic here is in these CloudTech phased elements, which, despite the rigid profile, provide you a really nice roll. Of course, we also have quite a bit of a rocker, as you can see at the front and the back. That's also helping quite a bit. So what's it for? Well, On says it's for daily training runs and long runs, and I'm going to agree. I'm going to give you more impressions as I run, as well as that comparison to the Cloudmonster AB, but it's 9.7 ounces for that big stack, quite reasonable. It's sub 10 ounces, so it's 275 grams in a US 9. It's $180. It launches November 2nd, today, the day of the video. So, in terms of the ride, what you really notice here is the front rocker and the compression of our CloudTech elements. Really drives you forward despite the 31mm front stack height. Also, it's very well cushioned. The cushioning feel, it's not a soft foam, but the elements compress, so there's a lot of reactivity back, a lot of vibration control and cushion, but not mushy, which is important when you get this high stack. As far as the heel area, yesterday I was running slower, and I felt some kind of rigid feel on the lateral side, maybe not enough decoupling. But as the pace picks up, I think the rear rocker kicks in, and I've been running about 908 pace here, and things get a lot smoother. Very smooth flow forward. The shank I showed you earlier does stabilize, but at the ground. So this isn't a stability kind of shoe or shank. So it helps also give a bit of a kick forward. So all in all, a spectacular max cushion ride. Some ways, first one I thought of was the Tempo Next from Nike, which is a bit more explosive, a bit less forgiving to slower paces, but there's some of the same kind of front impulse of a kind of softer, more deliberate variety here. Gonna keep going. Okay, we're at the mouth of the harbor. Those are the Isles and Shoals. Much history, fishing history. Indigenous people were out there thousands of years ago, and the very first Europeans around here landed there in the summer and fished and brought everything back to Europe. So let's talk about fit. Okay, so I am true to size here. And this is a generous, soft on the foot fit. My right foot, as you often hear, narrower than, lower volume than my left, just turns out that way. And while on my left foot, I am very secure, just about perfect. I'm a bit loose in through here. I think also the wide platform under at the sock liner may be affecting that, but it's not a big issue. I do have relatively thick socks, so I think the fit, true to size, plenty of toe box room for just about anybody, and then we can move, if you will, out using the lacing arrangement. And I think wider feet will be happy, narrower feet will be just fine. It's a very light on the foot, comfortable upper with plenty of room and just spectacular kind of comfort. Just wish it was a teeny more dialed in, maybe more padding around the collars, even though they're comfortable, to stiffen about where the last lace goes through, might do it. Maybe a bit more tongue, but the tongue is comfortable. These kind of thin laces, very nice. Maybe a bit thicker, maybe a bit stiffer might help that. Bring my foot in, but all in all, a really fine fit. Fairly similar to the Cloud Surfer, but with a lighter mesh. So the Cloud Surfer may be a bit more supportive. So now I'm going to keep going. I'll give you some closing along here, Route 1A. Gets cold out here in the winter. I'd also tell you, Tracksmith films a lot of their catalogs right in this area, especially the cold weather stuff, or the cold weather stuff. So now we're gonna go up a little hill, but basically, I'm gonna say it again, we've got a really smooth flow forward for a max cushion shoe without a plate. It's actually very dynamic. I think tribute to the fuller coverage outsole and the foam, which isn't too soft, and of course those pods compressing in line. I can really feel that, particularly up front. I mentioned earlier on the Cloud Surfer, they compressed way too far, lower stack, not as much front rubber, and just kind of bottomed out. Here, not the case. They compress and roll you forward. Okay, let's sum things up after my second run in the low 920s in the On Cloudeclipse. So what I noticed is yesterday I ran slower, and I had some firmness here of the plate, which I think extends all the way back. You can see how firm it is there. But today, as I picked up the pace, I really got forward on the rocker and everything was great. This is one wonderful max cushion ride. It is not a soft, mushy one. The geometry and the foam, and of course our Cloud Tech phase elements keep you moving forward no matter the pace. And then you especially feel the front compression and toe off. And what happens is you kind of get supported and then pushed off the plate. The plate ends right about there, the plastic plate here. And then you go forward, down as they compress, but not all the way down like in the Cloud Surfer, and off you go. So there's just a very smooth, continuous flow, pretty much no matter the pace, except for that little bit of firmness or sharpness of the plate. Now, there's plenty of cushion. The cushion is reactive in the sense that it's not super soft, moderately firm, but again, with the CloudTech elements, that takes a lot of the shock away, and it also provides quite a bit of, I would call it bounce, but it's not bounce really from the foam. It's bounce from the elements releasing back up. So it's very kind of steady, vertical and horizontal as you move forward. So there's just a very consistent flow. They're relatively stable because of the plate with our 37 millimeter heel, 31 forefoot. In terms of the upper, this is my narrower foot. And I could use a bit more hold through here. Maybe I'll try the back lace hole, but they're not quite as well held on my narrower foot as my wider foot. So, but that's a good sign if you tend to have a wider foot. Again, the style, the craftsmanship, just simply amazing here. Look, even this heel clip is textured. It's not the usual smooth thing. These reflective overlay straps which hold the laces, just beautiful, very classy. And I'll also highlight the tongue has stayed perfectly in place. It's a little bit stretch knit tongue, and you can see there's 1 and 2 holders, if you will, through this front kind of branding strap. So there's no motion side to side. No lace bite even on this foot where I had to cinch them a bit tighter, my narrower foot. Toe box room, excellent. The high toe bumper keeps everything together along with the straps, and look how soft that is. All in all, On says about this shoe, the Cloud Eclipse, that it is a daily training to long run shoe, and I totally agree with that. A great long run shoe for just about any pace runner. And even you very fast folks, and if you are a person who wants a daily training ride with a lot of cushion but no mushin, this is the one to take a close look at, because so far I just haven't been bogged down at any pace in this shoe. Just a really fun, excellent and very innovative new approach to cushioning and ride geometry with the CloudTech phase. Really effective here, and much more so than in the Cloud Surfer. So we also have a full multi-tester written review on RoadTrailRun.com. So please check that out. There's a whole bunch of comparisons in there. This video gets a bit long, but I refer you over to there for the comparisons. Let me think. Vomero 17, Puma Magnify Nitro 2, Cloudmonster, Nova Blast 4, and several others. And also please consider, given the holidays are coming soon, checking out our custom Fractal Road Trail Run buckets. Okay, so with the speedboard now on the bottom and the Helion foam softer, and of course with the new CloudTech phase elements, the main thing I'm feeling is obviously softer, but up front compared to the Monster, I feel I'm sinking in a little bit more, not a lot, and my toes are sort of more in the game. There's more of a smoother rocker effect and less noise in the Monster as I toe down, as I toe off. More pleasant. Now you won't mistake either for a super softie. The Monster is a bit, because it's firmer, a bit more reactive, and our new Cloud Eclipse is smoother flowing, easier to turn over. That also applies to the heel as well. Coming off the heel a little quicker in our Cloud Eclipse. Okay, let's talk about comparative fit here between our two Ons of the max cushion variety. First, the Monster in blue is a half size up from my normal, whereas the Eclipse is absolutely true to size. So here's what I'm noticing. In the Monster, the toe area, front of the toe, is definitely pointier and lower. I think the mesh, as you can see, is also considerably, almost you'd say, heavier, and here we have many more ventilation holes, so it may not be as much about short as this denser mesh, whereas here this has some give. Now as we move to the midfoot, very interesting, you can see we have a new lacing scheme with those straps to hold our thinner mesh up, whereas here we had three essentially, 4 lace loops here. In total we have 5, including, I would say, the front one there, the front with the yellow and the red. So what happens is it's kind of wrapping your foot very consistently through the midfoot, secure and more comfortable, and actually I think a little more secure there than in our Monster. As we move to the rear, things change a little bit. I'm finding the Eclipse not quite as secure as the Monster. Not sure exactly why, but it's plenty fine. And remember, this is true to size and this is a half size up. So moderately wide Eclipse with, as you can see, with the strapping system, the ability, I think, to give wider feet some give. We do have a gusset tongue. You can see it's a very nicely done tongue here. Kind of a knit type material, but we have not one, but 2. Let me see if I can find them. 1, 2, 2 pass-throughs. So I think that also helps with that kind of very smooth, secure hold. All in all, super fine uppers, but this one is an evolution, similar to the latest Cloud Surfer, which was also excellent. I'm gonna head back to the barn. Beautiful. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great run.